Hi guys! So today I'm going to be showing you how to make a foraged duck. So in this bowl right here, we have a duck that has been marinating for 3 days in a brine made of black trumpet and chanterelle, and also some ramps that I fermented last spring. So this is making the duck nice and tender, and it has allowed the flavor of these wild ingredients to penetrate the meat. And so today we're gonna dry this out and stuff it. And so this is already cleaned, I believe. Let's just double check. Yep. There's something in here. So the neck is still in here, which I didn't realize. I should have checked that. And I think that means, yep, we got the giblets in here as well, which also we fermented, which is good because that'll make a really nice sauce and gravy later. And that's exciting that we didn't know that we had that. So we got the liver and the heart, and I'm not sure what these are, but this is the neck. And so now we have our nice cleaned duck, and the cavity is nice and empty. And so we're gonna make our stuffing for the cavity as soon as I clean my hands off just a little bit. Alright, so these can move off to the side. We've got 2 clementines that I took the peel off of already, and I'm going to cut them in half like this, and then put them in a bowl on top of the scale. And it's on top of the scale so we know what the weight is of some of the other ingredients that aren't quite so easily measured. I usually put oranges with my duck, but I checked in the fridge this morning and I don't have any oranges, but I do have plenty of these nice, delicious clementines, and so I figured these would be a really good substitute. So now that we've added these, we're going to add in some pickled ginger that we're going to chop in a second, but first, okay, so that's 30 grams of pickled ginger. To that, we're going to add in some jam. And so this is jam that I made a couple years ago from the Kusa dogwood berries. So these are a really popular landscape tree, and they produce these red fruits kind of like the beginning of September. And my parents have a couple on their property, and this was one of the first things I ever foraged. I was wondering if these were actually edible, and they are. They're really tasty. They taste somewhere between like a mango, a banana, and a pumpkin, which makes them a really nice like fall fruit, and they're really sweet. Like, it's really surprising how sweet they are as well. So we've got about 150 grams of Kusa berry jam added to this bowl, and now we're going to add in some dark cherries because ducks and cherries go really well together. We're trying not to get some of the liquid in here because we're going to save the liquid for something else. And so that's, let's see, 150 grams of cherry. And then we're going to add my favorite, pitch pine cones. So these are some candied female pitch pine cones. We've got about, let's say 60 grams of pitch pine cones with the syrup still on them. So I didn't drain any of the syrup off, but I'm also not adding it in. And then we're going to take 2 spice bush berries and pop them. There we go. And now we're going to take this off the scale so that we can give it a good old mix. That smells really good. And so this is just about, oh, last but not least. So I happen to have lychee in my apartment right now. Went over to the Chinese grocery store earlier this week, and this is one of my absolute favorite fruits. They're not particularly easy to find, and normally I wouldn't cook with them, but because I have them, I'm going to use this. So you take the outer skin off, and then there's a pit here in the middle of this one. So you kind of peel the fruit off of the pit, and we're going to give it just a quick little chop because this is kind of all in one piece. They taste almost like candy and soap mixed together, but like in a nice way. And so I'm going to give this a quick little toss, and then we're going to move this out of the way just a little bit so we can pull our friend, Mr. Duck, over here. We've got him on our rack above so that when this cooks, the fat can render off. And we also need to tie them up because we want to cook both sides in the oven, so they're going to flip over. So I'm going to show you how to do the sling for the duck in just a second. So we got our butcher twine here, and I use about 6 feet, which is my arm span right here, and I fold it in half so it's a nice strong thread. And we're going to start the duck so that it's laying on its back. We're going to find the middle and have about a foot in between. You're going to slide this under your bird. Come on, there we go. Over by where the wings are, and then cross and go back around the wing. And so this way you can hold him up and flip him over nice and easy when he's in the oven. Now you can certainly do this another way if you have a preferred method, but I like this because I think it's nice and easy. And so now we're going to take the stuffing that we just made and put it in the cavity of the bird. Cool. Okay, so that's all going to go in there, but we kind of have to do it gradually and incrementally so it doesn't come out the front. So this is a really great way to incorporate more flavor into the bird by making a stuffing that we may not necessarily even eat because it may not reach a proper internal temperature to be safe for cooking, but we're marinating the fruit in here so that the flavor incorporates into the meat from the inside, because the skin can be a little hard to penetrate. And so I am going to clean my hands just a little on the outside of this bird. Don't forget to do the bottom as well. And underside of the skin. And so now we're going to put this in front of a fan, which is a trick I learned from a Chinese chef online to get really crispy Peking duck, or Peking style duck, because this isn't really Peking duck. But in an apartment, you put the duck in front of a fan and you leave it to dry for 6 hours, and that makes the skin nice and crackly. Okay, so our duck is here situated in front of the fan, and so I'm going to take this fan and put it on the highest setting that it'll go, and we're going to leave this duck here for like 4 hours, maybe a little bit longer. We're gonna look at the skin over these few hours, and depending on how fast it dries, we're gonna begin applying our hoisin and maple syrup to it, and that will also help get it nice and crispy and caramelized because we're putting a little sugar on here. And so we'll be back in a little bit to check on our fowl. Okay, so we're gonna make our sauce to baste the duck with now. So I'm gonna start with just a little bit of sriracha. Okay, maybe a little more than that. This is gonna help make the sauce not taste just sweet because we're gonna use maple syrup as well. And then this is some of our kusa berry jam that we made. And so we're gonna put in a little of this, not too much because it's a little thick. And we want this sauce to kind of drip down over. We're also going to put in some homemade wineberry jam. A tablespoon, generous tablespoon, I guess, of hoisin sauce. A little bit of thick soy sauce. So this is like a really intense, kind of strong version of soy sauce, and then we're going to put in some of the liquid that's in the jar with the cherries. Okay, we can put a little more. And we're going to give this a good old mix. Make sure you get all that nice thick soy sauce off. Okay. So this is just about the consistency I want so that it'll still kind of drip and it won't just sit on top of the skin, which is something that you don't want with this. We want to still be able to dry it out and have the sugar kind of dry on top of the duck skin so that it gets nice and crispy. Ooh, that's really good. That's really good. Just the right amount of sriracha to kind of like warm it up and wake your palate up a little bit. And there's not too much dark soy sauce because this will make it taste a little too bitter. One thing I want to grab that I forgot is a new ingredient that I've just come up with. So pomelos are one of my favorite fruits. And if you've ever seen one, it's like this big. And so you get a lot of rind with them, and I never like to throw away the citrus rind. So what I did with this one was dehydrated it and then pulverized it so that I could use it as like a little pop of citrus. And it's nice and strong, so I don't really have to use a ton of it. And I think like it'll really... Wow, that's really good. That was the right call. You should absolutely dehydrate some citrus rind and use it as a seasoning. Okay, so now we're going to go over to our duck in front of the fan and we're going to start basting this. Okay, so now we're going to baste our duck with the sauce that we just made. And so if you look at the skin, you can see it's starting to look kind of dry and a little papery, which is exactly what we want because this is how it's going to get nice and crispy. So start, and this is a pastry brush that I'm using. We're going to do this a number of times over the remainder of the day to kind of make sure that this is in a nice, even coat over the whole bird. So you don't have to, smear it on real thick. And actually, you really don't want it on too thick either because it will prevent the skin from drying further. If it's nice and thin, you can do a whole bunch of different coats and each one will dry quickly rather than just one or two that dry really slowly. And you do want to get the wings under this little extra bit of neck skin over here. And do the other side of the wing. And we're going to turn this boy over in a minute too and do the other side. And so we're going to use our handy dandy little sling, pick up the tail, so that we don't lose everything inside and just go over right like that. You can see the other side is dry as well. Not as dry, especially where the rack was hitting it, but that's okay because we're gonna do this on this side. And now this side will have a chance to dry out as well. Okay, so we're going to put the fan back on and we'll be back in several hours. So our duck has been sitting out and it's nice and dry now, and it's really tacky when I touch my finger, which is good because the only thing left on top of the skin is the sugar and the rest of the marinade. And so we're going to just scrape the bottom of our dish so we can get this last bit of sweet goodness on top of the duck. And so let's just do that nicely down. Beautiful. Okay. We're gonna put this back. We're doing it on a rack so the nice fat drips down into the pan below, and we can collect that and use it later. And so now it's going in a 425 degree oven for half an hour, and then we're going to flip it over, and then it's going to go for another half an hour. So So we just flipped our duck over. It had 30 minutes in the oven. It's gonna go in for another 30 minutes, and then it's gonna come out and have a little rest, and then we're gonna cut it and eat it. Okay, so our duck is just about done. Oh, look at that. Ain't she beautiful? So this needs to rest for 15-ish minutes or so in a warm place. And so I have a microwave, which acts as a nice warming box. And we're going to put this gently to rest. So the duck is now well rested and still too hot to be. Well, no. Not too hot to be moved by hand. And we're gonna see if we can get this over. Oh, look at that. Yeah. Here, and if we can get these strings off, that will be lovely without ruining our skin that we worked so hard to caramelize. Doesn't it look beautiful? I think it looks beautiful. That's really good. Okay, so when I do duck, I usually start with the leg. and you're kind of just pulling it off until you can find the joint, and you just kind of pull and wiggle the knife in there, and it comes off like that. Nice. We lost a little bit of the skin from the leg. It's still attached to the carcass, but that's okay. We're gonna give this a taste. Wow. Wow. I got the trumpets and the chanterelles and the ramps, and it's so juicy and tender. Wow. Oh my god, the caramelization on the skin. Wow. No words. Go make a duck. It'll change your life. Happy foraging.